In this video, I will teach you about two features of GemCut Studio, or GCS. First, I'll show you how to use the Arbitrary Mode to select index teeth when they are not symmetrical and or not a mirror. And I will also show you how to use the Add Meat features of GCS, which several other cutters have asked me to demonstrate. You can also learn about the Arbitrary Mode and the Add Meat features of GCS in the online GCS User's Manual found under the Help tab in GCS. The Arbitrary Mode is explained on page 7, and the Add Meat Point feature is explained on several pages, starting on page 47 of the manual. I would recommend that you read these pages in the User Manual as they are very well explained. But don't worry, I'll still walk you through an example of how I'm going to use these two features to create a design for this very special piece of garnet rough. What I have here is, well, frankly, a massive piece of Rhodolite Garnet from Kenya. This piece of rough weighs in at a whopping 132.88 carats. And internally, I don't see any issues, which rough dealers call being eye clean. This is very rare for gemstone rough garnet due to its size, clarity, color, and lack of inclusions. As many of my fellow cutters already know, most red garnet in larger sizes are just too dark to cut. So it is a rare treat when you come across a piece of garnet that's not too dark. So what I have here is a large, clean, beautifully colored piece of rhodolite. And so what I want to do is cut as big of a final gemstone as I can with this rough. Rhodolite Garnet was discovered in the late 1890s right here in the state of North Carolina by William Earl Hidden, a Rhode Island mineralogist and geologist who's best known for the discovery of the mineral hiddenite. Since then, rhodolite has been found in a few other locations around the world, including Kenya, where this large piece of rough was found just kind of laying around. And when I look at this piece of rough, it looks very well shaped for a rectangular or emerald shaped design. But I would have to cut off a bit of this rough on the end to get a rectangular shape. That could mean I could cut two large gemstones from this rough instead of one, but if I don't cut the end off of this rough and just cut one gemstone out of this rough, that one piece will be even larger. And the shape, well, the shape of this rough is kind of a trapezoid shape. Or if I remember way back to my high school geometry class days, more specifically a right or right-angled trapezoid shape. Thank goodness that I'm not going to have to try to calculate the area of the right trapezoid or do any other types of calculations like I used to have to do back in my school days. I'll leave all those calculations for some high school student to figure out. All I need to know is it's a trapezoid shape. So my next step was to search the files in the public domain and find a gem fastening design for a right side trapezoid, and voila, I'd be ready to cut this monster. Unfortunately, believe it or not, the selection of right-sided trapezoid gem cutting designs in the public domain are, well, limited at best. So the question is, have I had enough experience in working with GemCut Studios or GCS to create a design just for this one uniquely shaped gemstone or not? I'll give GCS a try, and in creating a trapezoidal shaped gem cutting design, I will also learn about and demonstrate for you the Add Meat Points feature of GCS and the Arbitrary Mode. So the trapezoid, like a rectangle or emerald design, has four sides, and from the many emerald or rectangular gems I've cut, I already know that I'll be using the 96, 24, and 72 teeth of my 96 tooth index gear to create a trapezoid design. So I just have to kind of guesstimate that final index tooth for that final side of the trapezoid, the side that would be a 48 tooth in a normal rectangle or emerald shaped design. So to kind of estimate the index tooth I need to use to cut that fourth tier on each row, I'm just going to kind of hold my rough up to the 96 index gear with the 3 straight sides aligned to the 96, 24, and 72 teeth, and then just kind of guesstimate what tooth would be needed to cut that fourth kind of diagonal shaped line. And in this case, it looks to me like the 38 tooth will work, although some other teeth may work just as well. But I'll go with the 38 tooth for our fourth facet in our trapezoid. That gives us the fourth angle in the pavilion. Now, when I cut the crown for the gemstone, it'll be reversed or transposed, so I'll need to calculate that index tooth. So the calculation is pretty simple. Just take the 48 index tooth and subtract the tooth we were using for the pavilion, the 38, and the difference gives us 10. Now when we cut the crown, we just add 10 to 48, and that gives us 58. So on the crown, we're going to use the 58 index tooth as that fourth tier for each row. Okay, I think we have all the information we need to get started on creating this design. Step 1 is to cut the sides of our ruff using the 24 and 72 index teeth. So we are using symmetry of 2, angle of 90, and 24 for the index, and cut this by eye to where it looks about right. Press cut and we are done. I have covered symmetry in an earlier GCS tutorial, so if you're lost with that first cut, please review some of the earlier videos, particularly the one on symmetry. Next, we cut the 96 tooth. Now I switch the mode to arbitrary, or in this case, you could, I guess, set symmetry to 1 as it's the same thing, but I wanted to show you the arbitrary mode. So use arbitrary, 90 degrees, and a 96 index. Cut to where it looks about right and press cut. Next, we will cut the 38 tooth tier. Same process, symmetry to 1, angle to 90, tooth to 38. Cut or jump to where it meets the 24-72 facets and press cut. We have our girdle. I need to save the design now so I don't lose my work. I'll need a name for that design, and I think I'll keep it simple and call the design BOPIE'S trapezoid. Now I need to determine what angles I want to cut the step cuts at in the pavilion or the lower half of our gemstone. So to do that, first I'll need to know the critical angle of garnet. And that's because if you cut below the critical angle, light will pass through the gemstone and not be reflected back, and you'll have what's called a windowed stone. And if you have too much window, you have really a dead stone. No brightness coming back, no brilliance, no dazzle. You can Google the critical angles of gemstone material, and for garnet, it's between 33 and 35 degrees. So I need to stay about 35 degrees with my angle or above so that light will pass into the gemstone and be reflected back out of the stone, giving it some brilliance or dazzle. So let's just use 55 degrees for the first row, 50 degrees for the second row, 45 degrees for the third row, and 40 degrees for the final row. It's such a big stone that I want to have at least 4 steps. So for GCS, we will follow the same pattern that we did for the girdle and just set the angle to 55 degrees. An easy way is to highlight the G1 and press Edit Row and then press Cancel. This loads the same index teeth into GCS and you're ready for your new row. Just change the angle to 55 and use the slider to at least form a point where the two teeth meet. When you have that, press cut and you're done. Highlight G2, press edit tier, then cancel, it's all set. Now change the angle to 55 and jump to the meet point with the previous cut. Highlight G3, press edit tier, then cancel, change the angle to 55 and jump twice to the meet point with the 24 and 72. The first row is complete. Now I can show you how the add meet feature works. We're going to cut the second row or tier at 50 degrees, and we want 4 steps of equal size on the pavilion. Why 4 steps? Again, because this garnet I'm going to cut with this design is so very large. Highlight P1, press enter, edit tier, then cancel. Change the angle to 50 degrees, and we are set to cut these facets. Now press Add Meet and select the line that goes from the girdle to the end of the gemstone, where that little pointer is at. We will use the Select Edge Meet point of 3/4 or 0.75 because we want 4 steps. When you've selected that, then press Add and cut. Now we want the 96 and the 38 index teeth to cut facets that will line up with our first 2 facets. So for the 96, highlight P2, edit, cancel, set the angle to 50 degrees, and hit jump twice to meet the 2472 line and press cut. Highlight P3 for the 38 index tooth, edit, cancel, set the angle to 50 degrees, and again, jump twice to meet the 2472 line and press cut. This row is now complete. For the next tier, highlight P4 or P1 or G1, you could do that. Then edit, cancel, and use the angle of 45 degrees. Select the Add Meet and select the line going from the first tier to the center point all the way up. This time select the 2/3. And I'm sorry for the math here, but the way it works is we have 3/4 of the space available for our 3 remaining steps, so 1/3 of that space will equal that 1/4 width that we need. When you have it, press cut, and you'll see what I mean. Now we want the 96 index tooth to cut facets that will line up with the first 2 facets. So again, highlight P5, edit, cancel, set the angle to 45 degrees, hit jump twice, and press cut. Highlight P6 for the 38 index tooth, edit, cancel, set the angle to 45 degrees, jump twice to meet the 2472 line, and press cut. That row is now complete. For the final row, highlight P7, or you could do P4, P1, or G1, but P7, edit, cancel, and use the angle of 40 degrees. Select Add Meet, and again select that same line going from the second tier to the top. This time select 1/2. And again, that's because you still have a half remaining, and selecting 1/2 of that gives you that 1/4 width, which is going to make all the steps of equal size. When you've done that, press cut, and I think you'll see what I mean. Now we want the 96 index tooth to cut facets that will line up with our first 2 facets. So highlight P8, edit, cancel, set the angle to 40 degrees, and jump twice. Then press cut. Highlight P9 for the 38 index tooth, edit, cancel, set the angle to 40 degrees, and jump twice to meet the 2472 line. Then press cut. And voila, we have used step cuts to cut the bottom half of the pavilion of our gemstone. And because the add meat feature of GCS, all the steps in our diagram are of equal width. So that's the add meat feature. You don't have to use your eyeball to estimate the width of steps. GCS can calculate the width for you. Now for the upper half or crown of our design. For the crown, the 4 index teeth I will be using are the 24, 72, 96 as before, but now we will use the 58 tooth instead of the 38 tooth because we have transposed our gemstone. Since this design is for a very large piece of rough, I will again go with 4 steps for the crown. Most of the rectangular or emerald-shaped cut designs that I've looked at use 3 steps for the crown. But again, this is a large stone, so an extra step or two won't hurt anything, at least in my view. I think it'll enhance the stone. So the angles for the crown, well, I think I'll initially go with 42 degrees and use 5-degree increments. So 42, 37, 32, and 27 degrees, and then the table. I'm not sure if that's optimal or not. When I'm done, I'll use GCS's manual optimizer feature to see if I need to tweak these angles, if necessary, to improve the face-up brilliance of the stone. We'll see when we get to that. Okay, so just highlight G1, edit, cancel, to set up the 2472 teeth. Now, make sure you select crown and an angle of 42 degrees and cut by eye down to a girdle width. For the 96 tooth, select G2, edit, cancel, change the angle to 42, and again, make sure crown is selected and jump twice to meet the 2472 teeth facets. Now we'll use the 58 tooth, not the 38 tooth that we used in the pavilion. You can again select G3, that'll work, edit, cancel, but change the tooth to 58. Select crown and an angle of 42 and jump twice to meet the 2472 line and cut. Now we'll go back and resize the girdle. Select edit, then resize girdle, then use the slider to give you a percentage of width of the gemstone. I personally think I'll use a 5% width. You can use whatever you like. When you have the girdle where you want it, select apply. Now I want 4 equal steps, so I need to cut the table now. I can later move the cutting sequence so that the cutting the table is the last line of instruction. But for now, cutting the table on this diagram will give me a lot less rough on the crown to work with. And I want just enough rough for my 4 steps. To cut the table, you just set the angle to 0. You don't have to worry about anything else. Setting the angle to 0, cut the table for the Gem Cut Studios. Just eyeball enough rough for the upper half of the stone by using the slider. And where you get it, when it looks right, just press cut. And now we'll use the add meat feature for the rest of the crown. The next row is the 37-degree angle row. So highlight C1, press edit tier, then cancel, change the angle to 37 degrees, and we are set to cut these facets. Now press the Add Meat and select the line that goes from the girdle to the table, where that little pointer's at, and we will use the select edge meet point of 3/4 or 0.75, again because we want 4 steps. Then press Add and Cut. Now we want to cut a facet with the 96 index tooth so that the step will line up with our previous 2 facets. So highlight C2, again edit, cancel, set the angle to 37 degrees, and select jump twice to meet the 2472 line and press cut. Highlight C3 for the 58 index tooth, again edit, cancel, set the angle to 37 degrees, and jump twice to meet the 2472 line and press cut. The next tier is the 32 degree angle tier or row. Highlight C4, press edit tier, cancel, change the angle to 32 degrees, and we're set to cut these facets. Now press the Add Meat and select the line that goes from the previous tier up to the table, where that little pointer's at. Use select edge meet point of 1/3 because we have 3 steps remaining and we want to cut one of the 3. Then press Add and Cut. Now we want the 96 index tooth to cut a facet that will line up with our first 2 facets. So highlight C5, edit, cancel, set the angle to 32 degrees, jump twice to meet the 24 and 72 facets, and press cut. Highlight C6 for the 58 index tooth, edit, cancel, set the angle to 32 degrees, jump twice to meet the 2472 line, and press cut. The final tier is at an angle of 27 degrees. Highlight C7, press edit tier, cancel, change the angle to 27 degrees, and we're set to cut these facets. Now press Add Meat, select the line that goes up to the table, again where that little pointer is, and we'll use select edge meet point of 1/2 because we have 2 steps remaining, and 1/2 gives us 2 of equal width, making all 4 of our steps the same width. Press Add and Cut. Now we want the 96 index tooth to cut a facet that will line up with our first 2 facets. Highlight C8, edit, cancel, set the angle to 27 degrees, jump twice to meet the 2472 lines, and press cut. Highlight C9 for the 58 index tooth, edit, cancel, set the angle to 27 degrees, and jump twice to meet the 2472 line, press cut. Now just to clean things up a bit, I need to move the cutting instructions for the table, the T line of instruction, to be the final instruction because I cut the table last. So to move it down, just highlight the T line and either select the move down until it is the final instruction, or as an alternative, you could drag the line to the bottom of the instructions. Okay, we have our design, so now let's see how it performs. So open the render box and double check that the material for this design is Rhodolite Garnet. Each of the different materials have different refractive indexes, and they will perform differently based on those refractive indexes. So now select Tools, Tilt Performance, and see how we do. We get brightness of about 45%, 35% window, and 20% head shadow. So now let's see if we can improve on this performance by using the manual optimizer. To use the manual optimizer, go to Tools, Manual Optimizer, and the center piece of gemstone is the your default position where you're at. So you just check to see if you can improve on that by clicking the different icons, and you're either changing the angles of the crown or the pavilion and seeing if that increases brightness. So most of these other selections don't increase the performance at all, except the one option which increases the angles of the pavilion right next to our position, so it's a slight tweak. That gives us about another 10% increase in brightness, bringing brightness to 55%. So I will accept this option in GCS, and GCS will recalculate the angles on the pavilion and to reach this performance. So each of the angles changes by about 2 degrees. For example, our first pavilion facet was 55 degrees. Now it'll be cut at 57.52 degrees, and that 2%, 2.5%, or 2.5% change is going to increase performance by about 10%. So you are free to use this design, and if you do, please drop me a note and let me know what you think of the design. Photos are always welcome. And here's the final design for you. In this GCS tutorial, I have shown you how to use the arbitrary mode to select index teeth when they are not symmetrical or not a mirror. And I also showed you how to use the add meat feature of GCS, which several people have asked me to demonstrate. I hope you found this information on this tutorial useful. Just let me know in the comments what you think of the video, and also let me know what other features of GCS you want me to demonstrate. And keep a lookout for my upcoming videos where I use this design as I cut that big piece of Rhodolite Garnet. Wish me luck with that one. And as always, happy fasting, everyone.